The following program is a Creative Magic Network production. You're listening to What's Your Excuse with Max Ivy, known around the world as the Blind Blogger. People often say, if Max can do it, then why can't I? Here's Max Ivy.
Hello, gentlemen. This is Max Ivy, and this is another episode of What's Your Excuse, a show about transformation and how we become the person we end up being. And today we have another excellent guest with us, and I'm really looking forward to talking with him, partly because I've been kind of involved in his finishing and releasing his latest book. His name is Bob Abramson, and he is an award-winning sports journalist, writer for the University of Michigan's sports department. Eventually, he wrote a book about their national championship football team in 1997 that was very successful, sold over 15,000 copies. He was featured, had his own byline on USA Today at 21 years old. At 21 years old, I was still trying to graduate college. So, and having a tough time. He decided to change career paths and become an attorney. And in only 5 years, he became a partner in his firm. He is currently the author of a brand new book about how to attract, cultivate, and recruit new clients, whether it be for law practice or as a coach for people like me who life coaches and things like that. So he has a lot to share with us today, and I'm looking forward to talking to him. So, Bob, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you agreeing to come on and for making your schedule match up with ours, because between me and my producer / co-host Cedric, a lot of times scheduling becomes a difficult thing, and we usually end up in the middle of the day, which I know can be problematic for people who have busy businesses and other life schedules. So thank you very much for making it all work, and also for having the patience to sit through the technical details while you listen to the blind guy try to get all three of us on Skype together at the same time. So thank you very much for your patience.
No problem.
So I think, if there's anything I didn't mention about your background that you'd like to tell people, and then I'd like you to tell this, the story that's the beginning of your book about the incident with your fraternity at University of Michigan that led to all your success.
Sure. When I was 19 years old, I was a freshman at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Second semester came around. I decided that I was going to pledge a fraternity. I ended up getting into this fraternity, was loving being a pledge like most people do. And for the next 90 days, it was parties and drinking and girls, and one of the best times of my life. Then the day came to be initiated into the fraternity. There was about 2 weeks left in the entire year. I had already signed a lease to live at the fraternity the next year. It was all locked up. So I walked over to the fraternity, as I'd done a million times, in my suit and tie, really a sport coat, khaki pants like most college freshmen wore, and got there, and I was the first one to go before the entire fraternity to get approved. And they led me out to this big room. The main room of the fraternity house is incredible. It's got these spectacular high ceilings, beautiful wood, and I'm perched up really high, almost like a judge in a courtroom. And I'm looking down, and there's about 45 guys down below. And they're all wearing black robes, black hoods. They're all staring up at me. And as you can imagine, I'm a little intimidated at this point in time. And then out of the blue, they just start firing questions at me. It's like, Bob, how come you didn't like your big brother? What's going on there? Bob, how come we didn't see you at the fraternity house for like 4 days? Where were you? And at this point, as you can imagine, my head is spinning. And I have no idea where this is all coming from. Everything was rosy during the entire time of my pledge term. And then before I knew it, they were like, Bob, you're done. Get out of here. You're not getting into the fraternity. And I was blindsided, leveled, devastated. And then I just stood up and kind of ran out of there. And it's about a mile walk home to my dorm room in South Quad. And as you can imagine, that was not a fun walk home. I basically cried the whole way. It was pouring rain. I didn't really know what to do. I'd never been rejected in such an unbelievable fashion by people who I thought liked me. And I got back to my room and kind of just curled up in a ball for a couple hours and took it all in. And then I got up and realized what happened and decided right then and there that that was never going to happen again. I was never going to be rejected in such a form or fashion. I was going to make myself a different person that was going to be coveted by people, a person who people wanted to be in the group, a person who, this guy, we can't live without him. And so
I thought the word you used in your book, indispensable for business purposes, was a perfect word choice as to what you decided to do with yourself. But I have to ask the question: what was it in you that allowed you to make such a big change in your thinking, your emotional outlook in just a few hours? Because I've noticed in my life that I can do it, that the more I do it, the better I get at it. But that most people, when they feel a crushing disappointment, and we all know it, it doesn't really have to do with the rational side of ourselves. It has to do with the emotional things we were expecting to happen that didn't. So how do you get to the point where you can suffer what you say is a crushing disappointment and make that turn around like that in just a few hours? What do you attribute? And is it something that other people can latch on to?
Sure. It's more about character, and things are going to happen to everybody in their life, right? And it's out of your control a lot of times. And it's how you respond to it. And throughout my life, even before then, I've had stuff happen to me. And I just learned that you just have to bounce back and get up. I mean, if you're going to let that sit with you for months or years, it's going to crush your life. You can either sit there and feel sorry for yourself, or you can step back, gain some clarity, which is really what I did, and decide, well, where can I go from here? Obviously, this sucks right now. I'm basically like punched in the face, black eye, lying in the ditch. And how am I going to get up from that moment? But I don't wallow in my sorrows. But I did on that walk home, I can assure you. But I don't let things sit with me because life's too short. And even at 19 years old, I had, drive. And I've always had incredible drive that if something sets you back, then you got to find another way. And that's what I did.
Okay. And is that something you feel like come from your personal experiences, or do you think that's something you learned from your family or from teachers or from some other sources you were growing up?
I think it's from both. Obviously your parents, provide you a great foundation of how to handle certain situations. like back in ninth grade, I was sent to a private high school by my parents, Cranbrook High School in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And I'd been playing tennis my whole life. And so I go to try out for this freshman tennis team and go through all the practices. And on the third day, I got cut from the team. Like, you go check the list, and I got cut. And I was devastated because I played tennis my whole life. And I hated Cranbrook anyway because I didn't grow up there. I just transferred there for 1 year. And then after that, what I did is I dove into tennis and like hardcore and hired a tennis coach and worked at it for 3 years. And in my senior year, I beat a kid from Cranbrook in the finals of one of our invitationals. I still remember it to this day. And it's all about having resiliency and finding that inner drive that maybe you didn't think you had.
All righty. Well, today we're talking with Bob Abramson. He's a award-winning sports journalist, author of a best-selling book about the 1997 University of Michigan National Championship football team, a successful attorney, and now also a coach and speaker, teaching people on how to attract clients and other business. And you can find him at bobabramson.com. And so let's talk a little bit about your book that you just released back in December. Could you mention the name of it and tell people a little bit about what you were thinking when you decided to write it and what your goals are with this book?
Sure. The book is called Wow Your Clients, How to Land Clients into Long-Lasting Relationships. Right now it's available in paperback as well as on Amazon Kindle. And this book took me about a year and a half to write. And what I realized was, and just to give you a little backstory, is that I'm now a shareholder in my law firm. And I decided after a while, and because you've read my book, is that you can either be an A player in your job or a B player. And the B players are the people that come to work every day and do a good job, and then they go home. Well, the A player is the person that does a good job and brings in business. And I had just discovered that I had the ability to do this and brought in over $1 million of business to my law firm. And what I realized over time was that very few lawyers, just looking at my firm when I became a partner, and then when I started to talk to other business professionals like dentists and doctors and other salesmen, are actually taught, or not actually taught, excuse me, how to really bring in business. Because graduate schools and colleges, they teach you the basic skills, but they don't teach you how to bring in clients. And that's really why I decided to write this book, because I wanted to shorten the path for people to start getting clients and not take them 3 years or 5 years. Now, sometimes it does take 3 years to get a client, but I discovered certain tricks to basically in a formula to get it done, and that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, and I should mention that one of the things you talk about in the book is that the first thing you did when you realized you wanted to be somebody who brought in income was that you went and studied the partners in your law firm who were already bringing in income to see exactly how it was done. Is that correct?
Oh, no doubt. And I went on trips with each of the 4 main partners, and I didn't really talk much on those trips. I just kind of sat back and watched them kind of work their magic. and was taking tons of notes and soaking everything up. And I remember, and just so people understand, I defend auto accidents for insurance companies, people that, claim they're injured, but they're really not a lot of the time. And so we're hired by insurance carriers. So that's our clients, and that's who we go visit. And my boss, Mark Dolan, he would walk out of a carrier's office with like 5 new assignments in his hand. And so after learning how he did it, I remember I walked out of another carrier's office with 3 new assignments in my hand. And I sent him a quick text that said, "Thank you for teaching me, Jedi Master."
Yeah. Well, it is true that we aren't really taught about attracting clients or business in most college programs, or even, there are lots of programs out there training coaches now, and very few of them have courses to teach their own trainees as far as attracting clients or going out and pitching clients. So it's not just the college education; it's also certification programs like those where the need is lacking. In the legal profession, I think the phrase is a rainmaker. Have I got that right? That there are people who pretty much all they do is to bring in clients and possibly never even work of practicing law. Is that true for some partnerships?
Yeah, some, but most partnerships are still, you bring in business, but you're still a lawyer.
Yeah. I know that one of the things I deal with are I generally deal with authors and musicians and other creative types, and a lot of them still realize the need to actively generate exposure for their work. They feel like if they write a good book, paint a beautiful masterwork, record a great album, that's pretty much all they have to do. And there's still a lot of people who feel that way in the creative fields, but it's just not the case. You have to promote, you have to publicize, you have to gain exposure, and you have to turn that exposure into income. So I'm really glad to have you on here, and I was hoping you could talk about your 3 main points, which I think are marinate. I've got marinate and dazzle, but I lost the one in between there. So why don't you help me out a little?
Sure. The middle one's go for broke.
There you go.
But the first one is the most important one, hands down. And when I say the word marinate, most people are thinking teriyaki or something on a steak. And but really what I mean by marinate is you have to develop and foster and cement personal relationships with people long before you get their business. And if you don't do that, you're never going to get their business. And I spend a lot of time when I first talk to people, not talking about myself. I love to fire questions at them, get to know them. And when I'm first meeting them, I'm not asking them about where they work, what they do. It's more about gaining that personal connection and see if I can find one. Finding out where they're from, what ages are their kids, where do they go to college, what are their hobbies. All these things somewhere in there, you're hoping to find some personal connection and go from there. And because I already know about me and what I do, right? And so I don't really need to talk about it unless the other person asks me. But I'm more interested in finding out about them and getting their business card. And once you do that, it could take 3 months to get their business. It could take a year to get their business. It could take 3 years. The timing just has to be right for that other person, but they won't even think about you if all they see is that you're just a salesman.
I should mention that, like with a lot of things, you have an advantage when it comes to this marinating process because you spent all those years as a journalist asking questions for a living. And I'm sure that you got much more comfortable at doing that than the average person is when they first start this technique that you're mentioning.
Yeah, I have a little advantage. When you've interviewed over 1,000 people as a professional sports writer, you learn how to ask questions, how to kind of, gain that personal connection. But let's just say you're not that way, just like you discussed. And what I do sometimes is encourage people to do kind of role playing, like mock questions to each other. You've never met each other before. And we give them, 2.5 minutes to ask questions. Then you flip the switch and you give the other person 2.5 minutes. Or then you make it 5 and then make the other person 5, just to get them comfortable in certain situations. Because you're right, it does scare a lot of people to actually talk to people in social settings. And particularly when you go to conferences, when there are 1,000 people or 3,000 people, it's kind of intimidating to just approach another person. And what I encourage people to do all the time is, no matter what, just go up to another person, particularly with someone who's just sitting by themselves, and just introduce yourself. A person will appreciate that because they know other people. And just say, hi, I just want to introduce myself, and boom, and then you're off and running. And you have to get that conversation started. And you might be in the middle of that conversation too, and realize that you are not having a personal connection, right? Or that person's business is something you think that you probably are never going to need ever in your life. But guess what? Still get their business card, because you may not need them, but somebody you know might need their services down the road. And guess what? They have a whole network of people too. So they might know a whole bunch of people who might need you too.
That's one of the things I run into a lot when I'm seeking out opportunities for my clients to go on radio shows or TV or whatever. Is a lot of times I run into they fit nobody I currently represent, but that doesn't mean I don't reach out to those people and introduce myself, because what if a year from now I have a client who's perfect for that person, and I passed on that opportunity because of a short-sighted view of what would probably help me now or in the next year. So that's definitely some good advice there, that you go ahead and make the connection and build the relationship, because you never know who they know.
Exactly.
And I like the line you used in the book about, even if they're funny looking, still go up and talk to them. I like that.
And then the second critical step is go for broke. So you've developed the personal relationship at this point. And when I say go for broke, I mean, this is the moment when you have to go ask for someone's business. And I don't care who you are. This is not fun. It's kind of uncomfortable, I think, for most people. And what I talk about in the book is kind of an easier path before you get to that question. And it really starts well before you get there. And knowing everything you can possible about the person that you're going to pitch to that day. And really kind of stepping into their head and going, well, why would I go with this particular person over anybody else? And you have to think to sway them my way. And really, what people usually want is kind of 3 different things. And one of that is, how is this person going to save money? How is this person going to make me look good? And how is this person, as we all want to do, make a profit? And if you create a package in such a way that benefits them, by the time you get to that question, it's going to be hopefully a seamless transition because they'll already want to go with you.
And then the third part is dazzle, which is something that not enough people really do anymore, to the point where when you perform those extras that make the impression, they really seem to matter nowadays.
Yeah, once you get a client, we all try to do an amazing job on that first job or assignment, right? And then after they start giving you more work, and then you kind of get routine. And what happens is, after a while, a lot of people just start to take their clients for granted. But what the key is to really, when I say dazzle, is go beyond just the job. Do something that's so amazing, so incredible, that when you do it, they're not only going to start flooding you with work, but they're going to start telling the whole world about you. People that cut their hair, the guys on their tennis team, people in their Maj group. And, one of the examples I give in the book is, there's a company that I was trying to basically drum up more business for in Indiana, where another one of our law offices are. And I asked the lady, because she talked about she just had a work anniversary of 20 years. I mean, which is just incredible by itself. And I was like, so what do you guys do for, celebrating 20 years of your company? And she said, nothing. And I was just blown away by that. And so I came up with this idea. And one of the places that I like to use is a company called sendoutcards.com. And they have these massive, gigantic, humongous cards. I think they're like 20 by 20 or something like that. And I think I wrote on it to the effect, congratulations on 20 years. Since your company doesn't recognize you, we will. And then I sent her these like incredible brownies. And she called me right away and started sending me work, even though I didn't even come there to pitch her for work. And the clients appreciate that you go above and beyond expectations and try to wow them once a quarter. I imagine, Maxwell, if I, sent you a 20 by 20 card, that would kind of get your attention, wouldn't it?
Yeah, except I'm usually more impressed by the ones that are musical, but that's just a visual thing. So, but the fact is that when you get a card like that in the mail, generally the person who brings it to me is going to go, Max, what the heck is going on here? So it would definitely, excuse me, definitely make an impression in my day. Before we continue here, I should mention that this is the What's Your Excuse show. We are on the Creative Magic Network at frederickby.com, FREDERICBYE.com. And, of course, he'll put the link up in the show notes, but you can subscribe to the email list for the Creative Magic Network and not only get updates about my show, but also about Frederick's show on the creative process and listen to his amazing guests, also Mara Sweeney. And who knows what other guests will be joining the network over the next year. We're definitely looking for new people who have messages of inspiration and hope to share. So definitely go over to the website, frederickby.com. You can also check out his Patreon page and contribute to that. And you'll receive some nice thank you gifts, and also it will help support the production costs of keeping the network going and keeping Frederick going, which I like to do because without him I wouldn't have a show. So now back to my awesome guest, Bob Abramson, bobabramson.com. And, one of the things I like about you is you mentioned the fact that you are a storyteller. And I think that's well, crap, I got ahead of myself. I was going to mention that when you were talking about going above and beyond in your book, you do remind people that it doesn't always have to involve spending a lot of money, that in today's climate, making a phone call that isn't meant to talk about work or sending an actual letter through the mail that you've handwritten, things like that impress people because they're the kind of personal stuff that people just don't do anymore.
Exactly. And it's kind of a lost art, is just because think about it. When the mail comes and there's bills and then there's advertisements and there's a card. Open. Card. But nobody sends cards. Nobody sends handwritten thank you notes anymore. And nobody just calls you up when you're a client to say, hey, just want to know how you're doing. I know you had surgery a couple weeks ago. Just want to make sure it's okay. Or I know your kid was playing in the state playoffs. Just call and see how he did. And that means a lot to people, that you're not just a client. You're not just the person that pays my bill. You're someone that cares.
Yeah, very important. Now I want to get to my other point that I got ahead of myself sometimes, is that you mentioned that you are a storyteller, and I think that's important, because one thing that we are finding out in the new online world of blogging and podcasting is that it's the people who are good storytellers who are willing to share their personal experiences, good, bad, and otherwise. And in actuality, it seems like the more horrible the story that you overcame to get to where you are, people like it. I was very appreciative to read in your book that you talk about people sharing their stories when they're looking at, especially making presentations and being in the public settings that might lead to business contact.
Yeah, I speak a lot. I'm a member of Toastmasters. I'm in part of the Speaker Bureau. I'm actually speaking at Ford Motor Company next week. And the seminar I'm having is just what you talked about. It's the art of storytelling. And ever since I was, in high school, I've just had this innate ability to tell stories and be able to grab people's attention, basically from whether it's the first words out of my mouth or when I write an article, it's that first paragraph. Because if you don't grab them then, they're not going to read anything beyond that. And it's the same thing with a speech. And people remember stories. And people love the struggle. And that's why I wrote it as the lead chapter in my book, because it is my defining story. It is my defining moment. And it's the reason I'm sitting here today talking to you. But the fact is, every single person has got a great story brewing inside them. They probably don't know it. And the story they have resonates probably with most people, even though they may not have had the same circumstances. Like when I was telling you about me getting cut from my freshman tennis team at Crook High School, I can assure you that when I give that speech next Wednesday, almost every single person in the audience can relate to that, because all of us have been cut from something at some point in our lives, in our career, from a sports team or a club or anything. And it's all about that feeling of rejection, and life happens. But it sounds terrible to say, but the worst thing that happens to you, the better the story that you have.
Well, I imagine you've probably come in contact with this woman during your career, because she is pretty famous in the sports journalism world, and that's Robin Roberts, and she firmly believes that people should make their mess their message, and I think that was even part of her book title. So, you're preaching to the choir here, because I'm one of those people who has lots of stories, and Frederick has even told me that I should do a show once a month where all I do is tell stories. And I've thought about it, and I'm actually, maybe I'm going to do it. I'm still not talked into it, but I can see his point. And after reading your book, I, made his point even clearer. I was talking with a friend of mine recently about how some people are concerned their story isn't good enough or big enough or tragic enough. And I told him, I said, there's lots of people who have better stories than me, but thankfully for me and you, most of them aren't telling their stories. There are a lot of people that have even more impressive stories, but so many people keep those stories to themselves.
You hit the nail right on the head. I coach people how to unearth their own personal story. And a lot of people think that their story isn't good enough, which is precisely what you just said. And I brought this lady up when I was giving a talk, and I was running a storytelling seminar. And this lady gets up there, and she goes, I was standing in line at McDonald's when I was a teenager, and person cut in front of me. I was mad about it, but I didn't say a word. I didn't do anything. And she's like, well, that's kind of my story. And I said, what happened after that? She said, well, I decided that I was never going to have anyone walk over me again after that happened. And I turned to the audience and I asked them, how many of you can relate to the story? And nearly every single person in the audience raised their hand. So just from that little story, you can relate and connect with the audience.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you're going to be speaking at Ford Motor next week. Can you talk a little bit about how your strategy on attracting clients can help people in attracting speaking opportunities? This is something I'm asking for the listeners, but more so for my own personal use. And I feel like it doesn't hurt me none to admit the fact that when I get somebody who's doing what I want to do, I'm more than willing to ask them how they're doing it. So could you touch on that a little?
Sure. Speaking is a vehicle to attract clients, because once people see you up on stage, you're perceived as an expert in your field. But this all goes back to what we talked about today, right? Storytelling. I always start a speech off with storytelling. And then you've got to provide them, after you give them a story, you've got to provide them insane value during your speech. I don't hold back my secrets during a speech. And then you want them craving more. And you want them to come with you. And so, I bring my book with me while you're clients. I have a program that people can work with me on storytelling or, bringing in business. And, I'm in Toastmasters as well, so I can go to all the different Toastmasters clubs anywhere in the world, which a lot of people don't realize if you're in Toastmasters, and get up and speak in front of other groups and market my book. And I do it online, and then you can go on Facebook Live and tell stories, read a couple pages or two from your book. And there's all sorts of different strategies like I'm doing today. I'm on your podcast. That's another vehicle. You got to let people know, every person that you talk to, hey, I'm a speaker. Hey, if you're a conference organizer, like when I go to a conference, I find out who runs the conference and who's in charge of hiring the speakers. And then I say to them, look, I'm a very good public speaker. Can how do I pitch, to be your speaker next year? What do you need from me?
Well, I have done very well with that, with a similar tactic as far as I've done radio and podcast interviews with people, and I have found out that these same people have TV, or they have magazines, or they have virtual summits. And I've pitched myself for their other opportunities, and that's worked out real well. but for some reason I seem to be having difficulty cracking the public speaking from what I'm doing so far. And so that's why I was wanting you to talk about how you do it. And I recently found out that there are a couple of Toastmasters chapters that operate online or that operate through Blog Talk Radio. And a friend of mine is going to be hooking me up with one of those groups now that I'm back home from my trip. So that's Toastmasters sounds like something that might give me some opportunities I haven't run into so far. So, and continuing to meet people on my show like yourself can't hurt. So
we got around 5 minutes.
Yeah, I thought we were getting close to the end, so thank you. I thought we were getting close. All right. Well, look, it's been great fun having you on the show, Bob. I should mention to people that I met Bob when he was looking for somebody to edit this book, and I got him and my friend Lorraine regularly together. She edited the book, and since I believe in her work, and since I've known Bob for a couple of months now, I figured that it'd be a good connection of people to bring him on the show, and I think he's shared a lot of good stuff with us. Is there one thing that you would like to tell people before we finished, and then also mention your website and any other social media sites?
Yeah, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. If you do anything, don't be afraid to share your personal story. So many people, hold that inside of them. I held mine inside of me for 25 years, and I wish I had let it out sooner. And if you need help unearthing that personal story, I can help you.
Okay, and then mention your website and and whatever the name of the programs you offer on the site as far as storytelling and attracting clients.
Yeah. So if you go to www.bobabramson.com, and there's a $99 program, online program to light a fire in your business. And then I also have another program, and that is the art of storytelling. And I have a $99 session where I help you kind of unearth your own personal story. And if you're interested in that, you can email me at bob@bobabramson, ABRAMSON.com.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It was a pleasure reading your book. It's I can highly recommend it. It's entertaining as well as got a lot of good information in it. And it's over there on Amazon, and I'm actually looking forward to finding your book on the national championship, because I am a pretty big sports fan, and I'm thinking now that I've read your business book, it makes me want to read more that you've written. So thank you, and have a good weekend.
All right, thanks for having me on. It's been awesome.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, okay.
All righty. Well, Frederick, what did you learn today from Bob Abramson?
Oh man, I like a story about how he finds these public speaking gigs, how he pushes people. I think that's very important, something too that eventually I'd like to do. Toastmasters, we have Toastmasters here, we have Toastmasters everywhere, and I haven't gone yet, but it's maybe something in the future that I will do. No, it's funny because I'm reading a book right now, Sales Dog. It's on sales, and he talks about a little bit the book. It's like his book a little bit. Wow, your clients, and it's very important to know how to sell yourself and to tell your story. I think storytelling it's huge.
Yeah, it's funny how we've gone from a culture where you didn't want people to know about your baggage, about your bad days or your terrible growing up periods. You wanted to hide all of that crap. That's been the prevailing logic for decades. And now here we are in a culture where not only is it okay to share that stuff, but it's almost as if whoever has the worst story wins.
Yeah.
Kind of like the old line in the South about with women, whoever has the biggest hair wins. That used to be a line in the South.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if whoever has the worst story wins. And it's incredible to see how that change has happened. And it's happened mostly because we've gone from a face-to-face world to an online world. And I think for the most part, good or bad, people are more willing to open up when they're not standing there with you or not talking to you directly. I think for some reason, the internet and email gives people a freedom to say stuff that they would normally hide. And, of course, that's where trolls come from, because there are a lot of people who feel like it gives them freedom to vent their anger and frustration on people who are doing nothing but trying to improve their lives. So, that's why I say, good or bad, it does seem that the internet has freed people up to share their stories and put more of themselves out there.
And just in personal relationships also, because now texting it's what you do. It's a lot easier and less confrontational, like less uncomfortable to text somebody and to actually talk to that person. And I don't know. I don't know if it's good. I think there's some bad in it, like anything else. But I think, just my opinion, we're lacking a little bit of human connection, I think, here in America at least. And I think it was Ian Levanzen that said recently, she said there's a lot of connection but very little relationships, so everybody's connected but they don't have a lot of relationships. And I don't know, I think there's good and bad for both, for there's good and bad in any situation.
Yeah, well, I think she is right. I think there's a very high level of connectivity, and I think there are a lot of people who are acquaintances and feel friendly towards each other or feel bitter towards each other, but I don't think there's a lot of deep relationships being built. Now, I think me personally, I think I am different in that, I have a lot of people that I'm just connected with, but I have made a lot of deep friendships with people that I have regular contact with on a daily or weekly basis that I have never met in person.
Yeah.
I was recently lucky enough to meet Ryan Badolf in person, somebody who I'd been emailing for a while and following his blog. Actually had him on our show here.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't see all the Facebook traffic about me meeting him in New York City and him? He's given me a new nickname, actually, and I'm hoping we don't get legal trouble over this. He's now referring to me as the Marvel Daredevil of the blogging world. And I told him, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Are you going to use it?
I don't know. I told him I'm afraid we might get a cease and desist letter. Yeah, because Disney does not have a sense of humor. If it was still owned by Warner Brothers or Paramount or whoever used to have permission to use the characters before they were sold to Disney, I might not worry about it. But
yeah.
But like I say, them boys at Disney, they do not have a sense of humor.
They don't, huh?
But no, I've thought about it, and a friend of mine who's not into blogging or podcasting or any of this online stuff, who knows me from church, sent me a text message yesterday. She said, "Max, I saw Ryan's post online about you being the blind daredevil," and she said I replied, "Yes, that's my friend," and I'm like, "Well, cool. People actually excited to say that they know me, so I guess that's good." So, yeah, I think, I'll run with it. The worst they can do is tell me to stop and then, send me one of them angry letters, and then I'll post that on my website and say I stopped,
Yeah. But, yeah, go ahead.
Do you follow The Big Bang Theory? You ever watch that show?
The what?
The Big Bang Theory, the TV show?
No, I don't.
Okay, one of the main characters on there is very obsessive compulsive, and several times he has gone beyond normal lengths to meet somebody he's considers a hero, like Stan Lee, Leonard Nimoy. Several of his heroes he's gotten restraining orders from, And he's one of those people who his character on television is to the point where he's not ashamed of having a restraining order. He's got them framed and hung on his wall. So I'm going to I guess I'll just use it until they tell me not to. And then when they tell me not to, I'll post that. I'll post a screen capture or a digital scan of the letter.
All right. Yeah. I'm thinking about you because, maybe, it relates to the subject what we talked today. And I think it's important for the audience to know, I'm reading this book and you have 5 types of personalities, in sales. And you're definitely, what's the dog again? The Basset? What's it called again?
My dog? Or?
No, the dog, the race there, the breed. What's it? The Basset.
You mean a Basset Hound?
Yeah, there you go.
Basset Hound?
Yeah. And, Basset Hounds they're loyal. They build, you know what I mean? They build real relationships. They're not like the pit bull. Because he compares the salespeople.
Oh, that's why his book is Sales Dogs, because he's defined all these different avatars into types of dogs. Okay.
Yeah. You have the pit bull, you have the Chihuahua, you have the golden retriever looking for love. Chihuahua is the analytical one, and you have the breed we just talked about. And so, but you really like it, I think, and I think that's why people like you. We feel comfortable around you, and yeah, I think that's why it is.
Well, I try. I try. Sometimes I'm the. Which one is the analytical one? Because sometimes I
Chihuahua.
think too much for the Chihuahua. Is
the
analytical one?
Yeah. Well, we're reading about the data, the details, the credibility. When let's say you present, you do a presentation, and you don't want to lose your credit. You must know all the facts and everything. So but we're you can be a mix, right? Usually we're a mix. We're a little bit of everything, but there's one predominant one, and I think for you is the Basset Hound. I think, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a compliment, so I'm going to take it that way.
Yeah, it is a compliment. Of course it is. But
right.
But anyway, all right, it's time to wrap this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So apparently I just need to tell my story, and eventually I will find somebody who wants to pay me or have me tell my story on stage. So that's encouraging. So that's another thing we learned today.
But guys, when you you can pick up his book from our website at frederickbuyer.com, and Amazon kicks back a few bucks to the show, and it helps cover production costs at no additional cost to you. No hidden fees, no nothing. So you can help by going over to frederickbuyer.com, click on his page and Bob's page, and click the link to his book in the bottom of the page. It is really that simple. Also, we're looking for new hosts on the Creative Magic Network. For anybody out there, if you're a passionate entrepreneur who have a message to share, a positive message to share, hey, give us a shout out. Check us out. Go to frederickbuyer.com and click become a host. In the header, and Max has 2 amazing books, and one that will be in audio really soon. Don't you, Max?
Yep, there's Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, a Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success, which includes stories from my life, experiences, life lessons learned, and 11 actionable exercises, along with my email address so people can report on their progress and have a friendly ear that will listen and understand as they go through the process of taking on that big goal or dream in their lives. And then there's It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, an easy-to-follow guide to weight loss success, lessons I learned prior to having gastric surgery, as well as things that have worked for me as I've adjusted to my new body and new appreciation of myself as I am now. And that's those are the 2 books. The first one, Leading You Out of the Darkness, is going to be available at the end of the month at the latest. And I am continuing to work on a book about my Amtrak experience, and hope to have a title, if nothing else, hope to have a title for it soon. So anybody has any good suggestions, I'm willing to listen.
Awesome. And don't forget, live with purpose, passion, fire, and love. Bye-bye. You've been listening to What's Your Excuse with Max Ivy, known around the world as the Blind Blogger. For more information, you can go to theblindblogger.net or frederickbuy.com. That's Frederick with a C, buy like bye-bye.com.